Order. Mr. Schaffler, please call the roll.
Senators Amabile, Baisley, Ball, Benavidez, Bridges, Bright, Carson, Catlin, Cutter, Danielson, Doherty, Exum, Frizzell, Gonzalez, Hendrickson, Judah, Kip, Kirkmeyer, Kolker,
Sorta, kinda.
Lindstedt, Liston, Marchman, Mullica, Pelton B, Felton R, Rich, Roberts, Rodriguez, Simpson, Snyder, Sullivan, Wallace, Weissman, Zamora Wilson. Mr. President.
Let's do this. The morning roll call is 35 present, 0 absent, 0 excused. We have a quorum. Senator Wallace, would you, for the final time this week, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Members, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the journal, Senator Carson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am not late to the podium this morning.
That's right.
I move that the Senate Journal of Thursday, April 16, 2026 be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes still have it, and that motion is adopted. Senate Services.
Correctly printed, Senate Bill 164, 165, 166, and 167. Senate Concurrent Resolution 001. Correctly engrossed, Senate Bill 2 and 145. Correctly re-engrossed, Senate Bill 90. Correctly revised, House Bill 1084, 1202, and 1262. Correctly re-revised, House Bill 1348, 1349, 1350, 1351, 1352, 1353, 1354, 1355, 1356, 1357, 1358, 1359, 1360, 1361, 1362, 1363, 1364, 1366, 1367, 1368, 1369, 1370, 1371, 1372, 1373, 1374, 1375, 1376, 1377, 1378, 1379, 1380, 1381, 1382, 1383, 1384, 1385, 1386, 1387, 1388, 1389, 1390, 1391, 1392, 1393, 1394, 1395, 1396, 1397, 1398, 1399, 1400, 1401, 1402, 1403, 1404, 1405, 1406, 1407, 1408, 1409, 1410, 1411, 1412, and 1413. Correctly enrolled, Senate Bill 104 and 122.
Committee reports.
Committee on Appropriations, after consideration on the merits, committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 6 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. After consideration on the merits, committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 15 be amended as follows, and if so amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 78 be amended as follows, and if so amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation, and with a recommendation that it be placed on the consent calendar. Senate Bill 124 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 135 be amended as follows, and if so amended, be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bill 151 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation, and with a recommendation that it be placed on the consent calendar.
Introduction of bills.
Senate Bill 168 by Senator Weissman, Representative Zakai, concerning the reporting of money handled by legislative caucuses and in connection therewith requiring each legislative caucus to report money accepted, received, and expended to the Legislative Council staff and requiring the Legislative Council staff to publicly post financial reports.
State, Veterans, and Military Affairs.
Senate Bill 169 by Senators Roberts and Carson and Representatives Luck and Camacho concerning the non-substantive revision of the Colorado Revised Statutes as amended and in connection therewith, amending or repealing obsolete, imperfect, and inoperative law to preserve the legislative intent, effect, and meaning of the law.
Judiciary. Proceed out of order. Moment of personal privilege. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Colleagues, we are here for a very unique situation. The motion, if any of you haven't heard it, we are going to do something called a motion to proceed out of order for moments of personal privilege. This does require 18 votes. We hope you guys can support that. Please vote aye.
You have heard this very rare motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes shall have it, and the Senate will proceed out of order for moments of personal privilege. President Coleman.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Members, to my right, your left, we have the Links Incorporated. The Colorado Senate honors the Denver, Colorado, and Colorado Springs, Colorado chapters of the Links Incorporated in recognition of the second annual Links Day at the Colorado State Capitol. The Links Incorporated is an international organization established in 1946 that is one of the nation's oldest and largest volunteer service organizations of extraordinary women who are committed to enriching, sustaining, and ensuring the culture and economic survival of African Americans and other persons of African ancestry. Through friendship and service, more than 17,000 Links members in 299 chapters contribute over 1 million hours of documented community service annually. We offer this recognition of Links Day at the Colorado State Capitol in gratitude for their commitment and service to their communities in Colorado and across the nation. Members, with us today, we have President Jennifer Collins. We have Vice President Alicia Harvey. We have NTS Chair Linda Williams. We have the Assistant Secretary Happy Haynes. We also have Val Gill, Fund Development Chair. We have Yolanda Barnes, the immediate past president. We have Ms. Tina Walls. We also have Gwen Brewer, who is one of the arts chair members, co-chairs. And last but finally not least, we have the other arts co-chair, who I saved, no disrespect to anybody, but the best for last. When my mother passed away 4 years ago, I got a lot of community mothers who adopted me, if you will. And this woman has the unfortunate opportunity of speaking with me every morning at 6 a.m. because she said, why don't you give me a call so we can check in? And that is Victoria Scott Haynes. And I want to say thank you to you all, and thank you, Mama V. Everybody, please join me in welcoming the Links. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that, I'd like to take a Senatorial 5. We need to pass out the special orders calendars.
Okay, Senatorial 5.
Let's do it. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate take up special orders second reading of bills consent calendar, which consist of House Bill 1110, Senate Bill 78, and Senate Bill 151 at the hour of 9:35 a.m.
The motion, the Senate take up those bills on special orders consent at the hour of 9:35 a.m. This requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. And that motion is adopted. The Senate will take up those bills listed on the special orders consent at the hour of 9:35 a.m. Special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Man, but the ayes still have it. And the motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself in Committee of the Whole consideration of special orders. Second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Marchman will take the chair.
Senatorial 5. The committee will come to order and the court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title of all the bills on the special orders second reading of bills consent calendar?
House Bill 1110 by Representatives Camacho and Jackson and Senators Catlin and Danielson concerning the protection of vulnerable adults from financial exploitation in relation to financial institutions. Senate Bill 78 by Senators Amabile and Kirkmeyer and Representatives Smith and Taggart concerning modifications to certain statutes relating to institutions of higher education and in connection therewith changing procedures related to information sharing, data, and capital construction projects. Senate Bill 151 by Senators Colker and Gonzalez concerning modifications to the Public Employees Retirement Association.
Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the passage of all three bills on special order, second reading of bills consent calendar and the associated committee reports, which is House Bill 1110 in the Business, Labor, and Technology Report, Senate Bill 78 in the Education and Appropriations Report, and Senate Bill 151.
Is there any discussion on the committee reports? The motion before the body is the adoption of all the committee reports on the special orders second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The aye has it, and the committee reports are adopted. Is there any discussion on any of the bills on the consent calendar? The motion before the body is the adoption of all the bills on the special orders second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bills are adopted. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has had a number of bills under consideration. Will Mr. Schaffler please read the report?
April 17, 2026, Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report is that under consideration the following attached bills being the second reading thereof makes following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 78 as amended. Senate Bill 151 passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed in the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1110 as amended passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed in the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 78 is amended. 151 passed second reading, order gross place counter for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1110 is amended. Passed in second reading, order revised place counter for third reading and final passage. Special orders, second reading of the bills. Senator Marchman.
I think it's...
Mr. Majority Leader. I didn't read the script.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate take up special orders second reading of bills, which consists of Senate Bill 6 and Senate Bill 15 at the hour of 9:41 a.m.
The motion is that the Senate take up those bills on special orders at the hour of 9:41 a.m. This requires 2/3 vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. That motion is adopted. The Senate will take up those bills on special orders at the hour of 9:41 a.m. Special order, second reading of the bill. Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the committee of the whole for consideration of special orders, second reading of bills.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The Senate resolves itself committee of the whole for consideration of special order, second reading of bills, and Senator Marchman will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 6?
Senate Bill 6 by Senator Amabile and Representative Brown concerning parity for the use of non-opioid pain management drugs.
Senator Amabile.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 6 and the Health and Human Services Committee report.
To the Health and Human Services Committee report.
We made some amendments in there, partly to reduce the fiscal note and then also to make some of the health insurers happy.
Very good. Is there any discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the motion's the adoption of the Health and Human Services Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that report is adopted. To the bill. Senator Amabile.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a bill that basically says that every health insurance provider has to have at least one non-opioid pain medication that they offer. Because we have, as I think all of you know in this building, a massive problem with the overuse and overprescribing and addiction to opioid pain medications. And this bill, we have a whole host of manufacturers who are coming out with products that manage pain that aren't addictive, that aren't opioids. And we are saying that the health insurance companies have to cover these medications. And we have to do as much as we can, in my opinion, to stem the tide of addiction in our country. It is like no other place in terms of the number of people who are dying on our streets, who are becoming homeless, who are suffering immensely. And the costs to the state are massive, massive costs that we pay because we don't have alternatives. And kids are getting addicted to these drugs. Oftentimes, the first time they encounter that is when they have their wisdom teeth out. And my nephew had his wisdom teeth out, and then that started him down the road of addiction, and he ended up with a heroin addiction. And we have to do what we can to stop that, and that is why these drug manufacturers are coming out with these medications, is to address that need. And I ask for a yes vote.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too ask for an aye vote on Senate Bill 6. As already stated, this bill isn't about limiting opioids. It's actually about making sure that there are safer alternatives without the same addiction risk, that they aren't harder to access. This bill, it does remove prior authorization, but it also removes then care delays, and we don't have to worry about care abandonment with the prior authorization. It gives providers and patients the ability to choose the right treatment for the right situation for that person. In short, it's about more options, not fewer, and it's a good bill. It ensures equal access, more choice, better alignment with modern pain management practices. Respectfully ask for your support.
Very good. Senator Mullica.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the sponsors. We had the opportunity to hear this bill in health and know where the sponsors are coming from, and I think it's a good place, and I know there's some personal stories and experiences that they've heard, and we heard some of that even in committee. But I was the only no vote in committee, and I don't expect to change anyone's votes. We're not paying a lot of attention on seconds anyway, but I do think it's important to really, I think, set the record straight, because I do work in this field. I work in the ER, and I do think it's important that our patients have options, especially our patients when they come to us and say they have some sort of history of addiction, that they have those options. And we have those options now. And we have those options that are affordable now. We have drugs like Toradol, gabapentin, we even use ketamine. All of these are options to try to address pain that do not have the addictive properties that opioids have. When we talk about safer alternatives, those are safer alternatives. We're hearing the ask to have more options. I think that's great. We can have more options. I think that you need to add the word expensive in there, though. These drugs just came onto the market. They're still coming onto the market, and those drugs are expensive. And I think that when you look at that and when you mandate that, there is an impact on the cost of health care. There is that potential. Now, we can have the argument, we can have the debate of what that means and what that means for patients who maybe have maybe have a history of addiction. But at the end of the day, you have to understand that when you're talking up here and you're asking for more options, that we have those options, and those options are affordable right now. And those are options that are being used in the course of healthcare right now. And so what this bill does is it mandates that other more expensive options have to be offered, and that inherently is going to increase the cost of healthcare in a time where I think we are hearing from our constituents that the cost of healthcare, the cost of gasoline, the cost of groceries are all going up and becoming more and more unaffordable. And I think that has to be a part of the conversation. And so when we look at this and we ask ourselves, do we need more options? Maybe. Do we need to mandate more options? Probably not, when we have options that can address that. And I really, sincerely, genuinely I don't want this to come across as I disagree with where the sponsors are coming from, because I do agree with where they're coming from and what they're fighting for. I just think that we need to understand that there are these other options already in place, and that what this bill is doing is it's mandating options that are more expensive when we have options that are less expensive that can do the same job. I would ask for a no vote.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, we understand there are more options. Here's the problem. Non-opioid treatments are often subject to more barriers like prior authorization and step therapy than opioids. All we're asking for is those options to be treated the same as opioids. Non-opioids and opioids should be treated the same so that doctors can go ahead and treat with their patients in mind what is the best situations for them. So again, we understand there are options. We just want those options treated the same as the opioid option.
Senator Amabile.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will just add, too, if there really were tons of other cheaper alternatives, I don't think we would see what we're seeing, which is that 35 out of 100 prescriptions that are written are for opioids. That's nationwide, 35 out of 100 prescriptions. And the number of people dying on our streets from opioid-type drugs is growing. It isn't shrinking, it's growing. And every day, people are dying. And we have medicine in this country, modern medicine, where it is evolving all the time. And this is an evolution in pain medication. And to say, well, we shouldn't actually have pain medication evolve and change, we shouldn't develop new things that address this problem in our country, that would be crazy. And the only way we get the pharmaceutical companies to develop new treatments is by making sure that they get compensated for that. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. And we need them to keep doing it, not just for pain management, but for all kinds of things, like to say, we have enough good medicine already in the world, let's not develop any more. That would be a crazy thing to say. So I ask for a yes vote.
Senator Mullica. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let's be clear, I've never in any comment that I say not to develop new medication. I'm pretty sure that those words never came out of my mouth. What did come out of my mouth, though, is saying not to mandate it. There's a lot of medication, a lot of pharmaceutical drugs that have been developed in this country, and that's a good thing, without necessarily mandating that they have to be offered. What this bill is doing is it's mandating that these drugs, these new drugs on the market, and let's be clear, we all, I think, have a pretty good understanding how the pharmaceutical industry works in this building. We all understand that when a drug first comes onto the market, it's pretty expensive, right? They have to make up their costs, their research and development. That's neither here nor there, but that's the fact. They are expensive when they come on the market. What this bill is doing is saying these new drugs coming onto the market, we are going to mandate that when an opioid prescription is offered, that we have to offer this new, more expensive drug. I guess my question to the sponsors is why wouldn't, if we're interested in having an alternative to opioids, why wouldn't we offer and say, let's mandate that if you're going to prescribe an opioid, you also have to prescribe, you have to give the option of gabapentin, which is on the market right now, which is less expensive, which is a pain controller. Why not do that? Why do we have to mandate a brand new drug coming onto the market that is expensive when we have other options? Well, I'm hearing that it doesn't work for everyone. We don't know that these new drugs coming onto the market is going to work for everyone either. Okay, so what we're doing is we're mandating new expensive drugs when we have drugs on the market that are less expensive, that can do the same job. That makes no sense to me. I would ask for a no vote.
Senator Bright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of this bill, and I heard it in committee, and I'll tell you why I'm supporting this. If we went through all of our legislation over the last few years and talked about mandates, you'd probably find me not supporting most of them. And I would say that anything that addresses the opioid crisis is probably a good measure. One of my larger reasons, and there's a number of reasons why we might support or not support bills that come through here, and so I'll just provide my own experience, and that is, I've lost some of the most important relationships in my life to opioid addiction. And I believe that the financial considerations of this, while there are probably a little bit more expense up front, I believe that the immeasurable benefits of non-opioid options down the road far, far exponentially outweigh the cost up front. And if there's anything we can do to encourage investment in this space into non-opioid medications, not only will it save us dollars down the road, maybe it'll save us relationships and the people that we care about the most now. Thank you.
Senator Cutter? Senator Frizzell? Senator Cutter? Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have to get up here. I have to feel really strongly about legislation before I get up and argue about it. I also heard this in committee and really we had a thoughtful, debate discussion around it. I think there's lots of reasons why medical care is expensive in this country. That could be a long conversation for sure. But the fact is that the system has allowed opioids to proliferate. And it's up to us to do something to break that system. Every time I go to the doctor for gum surgery I had, you get a prescription automatically. They just hand you a prescription for opioids. So every single time I've had any kind of medical procedure that's a little bit intense, they give you a prescription. And that's just become matter of course. My sister lived in Germany for a long time. They would send her home from surgery with extra strength Tylenol, and so it's just something we do in this country, and we shouldn't be doing it. We heard lots of stories. I have a story, a family member became addicted to heroin because her husband was on opioids for a shoulder injury. Then, then they weren't prescribing them anymore, so he got addicted, and then she got addicted to heroin, and she died because of that. And it was awful, and it didn't have to happen. And so I think we need to shift the system and shift the paradigm, and I think this is a great way to start, and I really appreciate the sponsors for bringing it, and I hope you guys will support it.
Senator Frizzell, the most patient senator of all.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. That's very kind of you. Members, I stand in support of Senate Bill 26006. I also heard this in Health and Human Services and found the arguments particularly compelling. I have a friend who is got ongoing pain management issues, and they are going to put her on gabapentin. And I asked her, I was like, well, are there side effects to that? Because I've heard some not so good things about gabapentin. Because this is the thing, is we get opioids. So yeah, you have a medical procedure and you get your prescription for an opioid, because that's always just like the first go-to. And I've never been asked, do you want something besides an opioid painkiller? And I think that question should be asked. And that's what this bill is about. But going back to gabapentin, I mean, this particular painkiller, when used for long periods of time, maybe not even long periods of time, depends on your body, but it creates, you can have memory issues, you can have cognitive issues that are similar to dementia. Lots of physical effects, dizziness, and so this isn't always the best solution. We're just saying, and what this bill is saying, and I think it's an important statement, is you should have options offered to you that are not opioids. I don't want to take an opioid. It's not that I have an addiction issue. I just don't want to take an opioid. And I should be able to have that question asked when I have a medical procedure. What kind of pain management medication do you want? That's what this bill is about. I urge and I vote.
Senator Simpson, Minority Leader Simpson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of
Senate Bill 26006, and appreciate the good senator from Thornton's position. Find yourself here regularly conflicted to some degree about very generally against mandates. But it's a nuanced conversation here. It's like many of us are all for local control until we're not for local control. It happens here, maybe even more so this session for some reason. But, you know, thinking about all of us, too many of us have had too many personal experiences of folks impacted by the effects of opioid prescriptions. Without going into great detail, people close to me they're just lost in the system. I don't know where they're at. And it all started with an injury and a prescription for opioids. So trying to work through that nuance, and then the economics about you potentially are paying more now up front, but the good senator from Platteville highlighted what I wanted to talk about, to go, sometimes you have to do this instinctive analysis that says, yep, we're mandating something, we're mandating an alternative, and it may cost more, but the impacts, the cost to society and to us as a state outweigh that. And some of that is not, I mean, it's not 100% scientific. It has to be a little bit based on gut instinct. And I think there's value in having this conversation and setting this up for an alternative to opioid-based painkillers. And appreciate the sponsors bringing this forward and thinking about how it impacts all of us individually. Too many of us, again, have experienced this very, very firsthand, and you can count me in that pool of folks that unfortunately have had to experience this and deal with it. So thank you again, Madam Chair. I rise in support.
Senator Mullica.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for this conversation so far, because I do think it's important, and I think that there is no doubt that healthcare has not played a role in the opioid crisis that we are in today. No doubt, no debate on that. I think my issue with this bill is that if we didn't have other options, then I think that this is maybe a more appropriate conversation, but that we do have other options, and gabapentin got brought up. There's side effects on any medication that we have. There's probably going to be side effects on medications that are coming into the system that this bill is talking to that we haven't even realized yet. But there's also other drugs. There's Toradol. We use ketamine in the ER oftentimes instead of opioids, instead of fentanyl or other drugs when it comes to pain. So there are other options. I think that again, going back to the question is if we have other options, why are we going straight to the more expensive new drug on the market if we have other options to try to address this, rather than mandating a more expensive option? This bill is supposed to be about options. We have those options. If we want those conversations to happen, put that in there. Let's talk about that. Let's have the providers talk about that. Let's make sure that we're having that conversation with patients, that they do have other options other than opioids. I'm all supportive of that. What I struggle with is that we are running legislation in this building that is going to mandate a more expensive option that is going to financially benefit a certain industry or company. And that's tough. That we should all be thinking really long and hard about that. The minority leader is correct. We have a lot of conversations in this chamber and a lot of feelings on mandates and affordability on this side of the aisle. And now we have a bill that is undoubtedly going to increase the cost of insurance for options when we have other options. And we're not talking about those other options. And I'm just sitting here wondering why we're not talking about those other options. Why is the only option that we're going to mandate be the most expensive option? I work in the ER. They are effective. People have prescriptions for gabapentin. It works. You come into the ER and we use Toradol constantly for pain. That's non-opioid. We have options. Let's not just jump right to the most expensive option that's going to financially benefit a certain industry. And if we want conversations to happen, If we want those options to be offered to our patients, let's talk about that. Let's not mandate expensive options for patients with drugs just coming onto the market. Let's have real conversations on how we're going to address this, because you are right. You are right. We have played a role in the opioid crisis, and we need to do something about that. I'm not sure if the solution is just offering the most expensive brand new drug onto the market when there's other options to try to make sure that we can address folks' pain that is non-opioid. I would ask for a no vote.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning.
Morning.
Members, there is not a mandate in the bill. Let me just clear up some confusion. I know when this bill was first introduced, and if you notice, my name's not on the bill right now, but it is, got on this bill. But when the bill was introduced, there was this conversation that there was only one drug company that offered one alternative. Because the language in the bill says basically that there is at least one clinically appropriate non-opioid prescription drug available as an alternative for each opioid prescription drug. That there's an alternative. And I understand and appreciate that the good senator from Thornton had this idea that there was only one company and only one alternative. Hence why I think we're getting the language that he believes there's a mandate. But you can go to www.nonopioidchoices.org. It's a webpage. And it talks about the non-opioid drug pipeline. And there are at least 4 companies. I know. We also don't like drug companies until we need to use the drugs that they've created. That happens here too. But in this case, it isn't just one drug company. There are actually 4 drug companies: Cumberland, Heron, Pacifra, how do you say that? Pacria, something, Vertex. There are actually 4 companies that offer a non-opioid drug choice. So it is not a mandate to just go get one more expensive drug. And we all know how it works. If there's only one drug on the market, sure, it's going to be more expensive. Then when it starts getting more competitive because there are other drug choices, other alternatives, which there are, the price goes down. We all know how it works. Not only are there 4 companies that have a non-opioid, non-addictive, non-risk choice, there are 8 companies that are all the way through phase 3 practically. Another 8 companies on their way to having a non-opioid choice on the market. I don't know how long it takes to get from phase 3 to a check mark on this, in this area, but it's got to be pretty close. Certainly, I mean, I'm not talking about the 2 companies that are all the way still in preclinical trials, or the 5 companies that are in phase 1, or the 6 companies that are in phase 2, but there are another 8 companies in phase 3. So we'll probably have 12 companies fairly soon on the market with non-opioid drugs. And that's what we're talking about, that there's at least one clinically appropriate non-opioid prescription drug. It's not a mandate that you have to have the non-opioid, more expensive, only one drug on. That's not what this bill's about. This bill is about choices. We all know that we have an opioid epidemic that continues to drive a national public health crisis. We all have stories. We all have friends. I'm sure the good senator from Thornton has more stories than any of us because he's seen it firsthand. But it underscores the urgent need for effective non-opioid pain management. And this bill is just simply saying, treat non-opioid, that it's not addictive, the same as we're treating opioid, and that it doesn't have to go through prior authorization, and that it doesn't have to go, somebody doesn't have to go through step therapy, that doctors working with their patients get to determine what is the best pain medication for them to be using, their patient to be using. That's what this bill is about. I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Mullica.
I love you to the good senator from Weld County. I do, but we do disagree on this policy. And I would push back on that this isn't a mandate. I think you look at the fiscal note and it says, right in the summary, it says the bill requires, it requires that. I think that we can probably look at it and conclude that that is a mandate. You know, I think the other thing to talk about as well is the fiscal note shows that this will increase the cost of health insurance. It calls it out in the fiscal note. But I think it also speaks volumes of what amendments have been ran on this bill. That we obviously are in a budgetary situation and we know there's a financial impact by requiring this or mandating this. And so there's been amendments ran on this bill stating that that this does not pertain to our Medicaid patients in our state, because that would have a financial impact on our state budget because it is a requirement and it increased the cost. And so again, we're going to debate, and I'm not immune to bringing bills that increase the cost too. I get it. We don't need to be throwing stones when we live in a glass house. I get it. I think at the end of the day, where I run in with this bill, and the problem that I have with this bill, is that we mandate something that is brand new, that will financially benefit, maybe it's not one company, maybe it's 4 companies, that it will financially benefit them when we have other options that we're not talking about, that are utilized consistently. And again, if we are concerned about how many opioids are being prescribed, let's address that and see what we can do with current options rather than mandating or requiring the most expensive option and increasing the cost of healthcare when there's other options.
Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you. Let me just finish the sentence. We are requiring, and I guess you could call and say that's a mandate, but we are requiring parity in insurance coverage between non-opioid pain management drugs and opioid drugs in several areas. We are not mandating that an alternative non-opioid drug be used. We're not mandating that there is only one alternative, because there are several. So we're not mandating that a certain drug, non-opioid drug, be used. What we are asking for in this bill and requiring is that there is parity in insurance coverage between non-opioid pain medication and opioid pain medication. And we are, through this bill, addressing the opioid overprescription, overprescribing opioids when there are other alternatives. We are addressing that by ensuring that the both non-opioid and opioid medications are treated the same way. That's what this is about. Thank you. Still ask for an aye vote?
Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And first off, I would like to disagree with the senator from Thornton, where he says people's ideas and thoughts don't change on seconds. Well, I know this is Senate Bill 06. This was introduced on the first or second day of session, and I'm not in the Health Committee. I have 0 emails from anybody discussing this. I've had 0 phone calls on this. This is where I'm getting my information, is by listening to the differing ideas on this. And so people's minds are being made up here because a lot of us aren't in the health department. I mean, we certainly don't go to work with you whenever it is that you go to work. But with this here, I mean, and I've just sat here the last week listening to conversations about cost of health care. And yet I keep trying to wonder and how our budget has changed so much. And I keep trying to figure out, well, how is it that we're doing that? How are our health care costs going up? How is our budget going up? And it's clearly from actions like this. Actions like this is what is going to cause our health care to go up. And consequently, if when our health care goes up here in the state of Colorado, we have made it a priority to fund Medicaid for people within our state. So that's going to cause that expense to go up, which in turn is going to cost our budget to go up. So it's actions like this that brings us to the discussion that we've had the last week here in this chamber. And, you know, hearing from somebody who is on the front lines, I mean, is sitting there and talking about the different types of things that are being used that are not opioids. I mean, there's no question from anybody about the damages that opioids and their prescriptions to people within the state of Colorado have gone through. We are getting millions, on the verge of billions of dollars from those companies for the opioids that they prescribed here within this state. And those types of things are trying to be eliminated from pain medication. And listening to an ER nurse, he's telling me that that's what's happening on a daily basis. That's what I'm going to believe. That's somebody that I trust, and telling us that the costs of those, and we don't need to go in unless we're going to have more discussion on it. And somebody's going to explain more of this to me, but we got 26 days left. And then this has got to go over to the other side for them to decide. So thank you for enlightening, particularly me, on this subject. And I'm going to be a no. Not because I'm in favor of opioids, but I think there's alternatives that are out there and that we should be addressing that. And if we don't have more of an option of addressing that here in the very near future, I don't have an alternative other than to say I think we should maybe wait. So thank you.
Thank you. Senator Amabile.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, everyone, for paying such good attention to the conversation that we're having. We did an actuarial study because we were required to do one to bring a bill like this, and the cost per member per year is under $5 for this bill. That's what the actuarial study said. I think it was 46 cents per member per month. And the cost to our society of reducing the number of opioid pain medications that are prescribed is enormous. And on balance, this is actually a cost-saving measure. If we look in the long term, which we don't really do in this building, we just look in the short term, we are really constrained in our ability to take a longer view of things. We did take Medicaid out. So Medicaid members will not be able to get these new medications. And that is a tragedy, actually. But we are in this budget situation that we're in. And I do believe that once we have these drugs introduced, once there is competition in this marketplace, the prices will go down. And then Medicaid members will be able to access these medications. And we also took out the state plan to get our fiscal note down. And that's too bad, too, because we have state employees who are being prescribed these medications and are at risk then of forming an addiction to these medications. And that makes me very sad that we had to do that. But that's what we had to do to get the fiscal note down. And that's the reality that we live with in this building. It doesn't make me happy, but if we can actually say that for this less than $5 per member per year price, we can actually address a whole lot of people in our state and make sure that they have access to different types of medications that will help them. And this is a new frontier, and it is a new frontier in medicine. And I think it's a very needed one. You know, there's talk about, well, we preferenced these manufacturers, but you know what we've been doing and what we continue to do is preference opioid manufacturers. And that's why they've had to pay us all this money, because they've done enormous damage to our country, enormous damage to our country, because we have given them a preference. We have said, this is the first thing we're going to do, is prescribe these medications that we know are killing people in our country and are addicting people, are ruining lives. That's what we're doing. That's who we are giving a preference to. And I want us to get to a place where no one is getting prescribed these killer medications. And so if I have to pick, who would I like to preference? I would like to preference companies that are creating new medications that don't have these just horrible and incredibly expensive downstream costs. And so I would ask for a yes vote.
Senator Henriksen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll wade into this, I guess, because I have received an email on it. It was a grand total of one, but it was from a constituent who is in recovery and asked me to support this bill. And then that's what really got me to dig into it. And I appreciate the conversation that we've seen here. I appreciate the comments of the good senators from Boulder, Brighton, Thornton, and Centennial on this. Healthcare, pharmacy is a highly regulated market. It is a highly price-controlled market. For the end-use consumer, for the patient, it is not, in any sense of economic theory, a free market. And when you have a set of options available to you, but one set of options is cheaper for the consumer, the end-use consumer, that's the patient, that's often not a choice for the patient. And so if you have a opioid and a non-opioid medication, and they're both available to the patient, to the consumer, but with the copay structure set by the insurance company, the opioid has a lower end-use price, a lower copay price for the patient than the non-opioid alternative. That's not exactly an even choice. That's a choice that favors the opioid. When you have a set of restrictions on the authorization that are more restrictive for one of the two options, and that greater restriction is on the non-opioid choice, so it is easier to qualify for the opioid prescription, that is not an equal choice. And so what you have is a market that makes it easier to access the opioid rather than the opioid alternative. And that is the problem that from what I understand, the sponsors are trying to address here, and that is the position that I support with that. And as to the overall cost argument, which I think is a very fair argument and a very valid concern, what I would counter with, and what has been the experience of my constituent, is when the only affordable option to you is the opioid option, and you become addicted to that option, to the opioid, that the costs associated with that addiction outweigh the initial savings of the cheaper drug price. Now, that manifests in many forms, and it's really difficult to calculate and tabulate that all in different columns and see what the total cost is. So I'm going on a hypothesis here that the end result of that the sheer levels of addiction driven through prescription opioid as the entry point to that addiction have back-end costs that add up and continue to stack for years and years and ultimately outweigh the cost difference that you would see potentially reflected in insurance premiums. And so I think that in the long run, on the net, when we consider the broad social costs and the cost to patients, to consumers, to the health insurance industry as a whole, I think that Senate Bill 6 is the cheaper option. I think it's the option that ends up ultimately giving more choice.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 6. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 6 is adopted. Mr. Schaffler, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 15?
Senate Bill 15 by Senators Belton B. and Roberts and Representatives Duran and Caldwell concerning offenses involving commercial sexual activity with a child.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 15, the Judiciary Committee report, and the Appropriations Committee report.
Very good. To the Judiciary report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the Appropriations Committee, we adopted an amendment that lined up the definition of commercial sexual activity with the federal definition and struck out an outdated spousal exception in the statute.
Very
Judiciary.
That was Judiciary. Okay, very good. The motion for the body is the adoption of the Judiciary Committee report. Is there any further discussion on that? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Judiciary report has been adopted. To the Appropriations Committee report, Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the Appropriations Committee this morning, the committee adopted L006, which eliminates the fiscal impact of this bill and directs the sentencing for one of these crimes if the conviction is resulting in probation to the county level, and we've worked with the counties on that and the sheriffs, and they still remain in a support position, so we ask for an aye vote.
Very good. Is there any further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the motion for the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Appropriations Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, moving on from one tough topic to another, this bill is regarding some of the most heinous crimes that occur in our society, commercial sexual activity involving children, where the victim of those crimes are under 18 years old. Unfortunately, this is a crime that Colorado is increasingly seeing happening in our state and makes us one of the highest states in the nation for the instances of these types of criminal activity. These are crimes, as I mentioned, that are perpetrated against individuals, mostly young girls who are under the age of 18, by older men, mostly white and socioeconomically advantaged individuals who purchase and solicit children for commercial sexual activity. We already have these crimes on the books in Colorado. This is not what this is about. This is about making sure that the punishment for those crimes fits what I think most Coloradans would expect, which is prison time. The crimes of soliciting commercial sexual activity with a child, pandering of a child, procurement of a child, keeping a place for commercial sexual activity with a child, pimping of a child, inducement of commercial sexual activity with a child, engaging in commercial sexual activity with a child, internet luring of a child with the intent to engage in commercial sexual activity are all felonies in our state. Of course they are. But they also allow a judge, the way the statute's written, to issue probation if somebody is convicted of those crimes. Not charged with those crimes, but convicted of those crimes, can still get probation in Colorado and not spend any time in the Department of Corrections or even in county jail. We believe, there's a very tough conversation about prison budgets and the budget as a whole. We understand that. But this is a bill driven by victims, driven by law enforcement, driven by district attorneys of both parties who know that when they see these crimes happening in our communities, the only way to prevent them from happening again is to have real consequences for them. And so that's what this bill seeks to do, is to add in a prison requirement for these specific types of crimes that happen against our children in our state. I will note, in order to deal with the fiscal issues that we know we had to deal with in order to move the bill forward, we adopted the amendment this morning in the Appropriations Committee that has to deal with one of the crimes listed in the bill, which is soliciting commercial sexual activity with a child. This is the one that happens most frequently in Colorado of the list of crimes that I listed earlier. Between 2022 and 2025, there were 51 convictions of that crime. 13 of those 51 convictions received a DOC sentence, which means that 38 of those convictions, 38 received only probation. So about 13 per year were receiving only probation out of those during that 3-year period. The amendment we adopted says and encourages judges to exercise their existing authority and sentence a defendant in that case to the Department of Corrections. But if they don't, and only are giving them probation, then a condition of the probation needs to be 364 days in a county jail. This is not unheard of and not unprecedented in Colorado law. We do the exact same thing with felony DUI, which is 3 or more DUI convictions in somebody's driving history. A condition of probation is time in the county jail, not in DOC. We have talked to county commissioners, CCI, the county sheriffs. They remain in support of the bill even with this amendment because it's mirroring what happens already, and the numbers are thankfully small enough that they can make this accommodation because they believe in the public safety benefit of making this change. I want to thank the many stakeholders who have worked on this bill. We heard some pretty powerful testimony in committee. This is one that I know is a huge problem in our state, and we're not going to fix it with this bill alone. But if we can show the state of Colorado and these victims that the state recognizes the severity of these crimes and has adequate punishment for them, then I think we're going to take a big step forward. And a huge thanks to my co-prime sponsor, the good senator from Sterling, who is very passionate about this issue, has worked very hard on this for a number of years. I am glad that we are debating this on the floor of the Senate and have the opportunity to move this over to the House so we can move this conversation forward. Thank you.
Very good. Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd first like to thank my co-prime, who is a lawyer, and he's done the good senator from Frisco, who has helped me out through this whole process of all the things that I can and can't do when we want to put stuff in a bill. I so much appreciate him and his hard work to support all of us in this, and I appreciate it. I also want to say how important this bill is. This bill is so important because it's brought to us by victims and advocates. That's why this bill is important. They see the increase in child solicitation, and they want to go after demand, and that's what they're going after with this bill. It is so important that yesterday, the good senator from Frisco and I received a text message, and let me read that text message to you. Guys, if you ever needed a stronger reason to pass Senate Bill 15, one of our clients, barely 17 years old, was found dead in a hotel room this morning with a buyer. We have to pass this bill. I'm sorry that we're ruining your morning, but this is a huge reality, and that's why this is so very important. Let's protect the children's innocence in Colorado. This bill is a message that says that God's children are not for sale, and that's what we need to send this message and saying. So I ask for an aye vote on Senate Bill 15.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 15. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that bill is adopted. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion before the committee is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The aye has it, and the committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills considered. Mr. Schauffele, will you please read the report?
April 17, 2026. Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 6, as amended. Senate Bill 15, as amended, passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 6 is amended, 15 is amended, passed second reading, order gross place counter for third reading and final passage. Third reading of bills, consent calendar. Mr. Schauffele, will you please read the titles of all the bills on the consent calendar?
House Bill 1262 by Representatives Stewart K. and Stewart R. and Senators Ball and Roberts concerning preserving patient access to compounded medical items. Senate Bill 145 by Senators Bright and Kipp and Representatives Basnicker and Gilchrist concerning charter school involvement in local ballot questions.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the passage of all the bills on third reading of bills, final passage, consent calendar, which are House Bill 1262 and Senate Bill 145.
Any discussion on any of the bills? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of all the bills on third reading of bills consent calendar. I'm waiting just in case there happen to be any no votes. And if there are no votes, Senator Marchman.
God, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to be recorded as a no vote on Senate Bill 145.
Senator Marchman recorded as a no vote on Senate Bill 145. Any further no votes on consent calendar? Seeing none, with a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1262 is passed. Co-sponsors. With a vote of 34 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 145 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senator Carson. Frizzell. Co-sponsors on 145. Third reading of bills. Final passage. Mr. Schauffele, please read the title of Senate Bill 66.
Senate Bill 66 by Senators Judah and Carson, Representative Jackson, concerning the regulation of compounded weight loss medications that have not been approved by the United States Food and Drug Administration.
Senator Carson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 66 on third reading and final passage and request permission to offer a third reading amendment.
Please tell us why you would like permission to offer a third reading amendment, Senator Carson.
Thank you, Mr. President. My colleague from Aurora and I will speak at a little more length in a moment here, but I will say briefly here that this amendment is very important because it really streamlines and clarifies the bill and gets at what we're really trying to do around deceptive advertising and deceptive marketing. And I think it makes it very clear that this will not interfere with individual compound drug transactions between doctors and patients and pharmacists and patients. So with that, I would ask for the permission to offer the amendment.
Now that's how you explain why you want permission to offer a third reading amendment. The request is Senator Carson's request, the motion is Senator Carson's request to offer third reading amendment. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Why? The ayes have it, even though there was a very compelling no, and that motion is adopted. There's an amendment of the desk. Mr. Schauffele, please read L16 to Senate Bill 66.
Amendment L16, amendment gross bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move L16 to SB 66.
To the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. So essentially what this does, and it pretty much is the whole bill, it targets deceptive practices, and so it makes false or misleading claims about compounded weight loss drugs. It advertise products as FDA approved when they are not, makes unverified claims about safety, effectiveness, or outcome, and distributes products without proper legal authorization or ingredients. Again, that's what we are labeling as targeted deceptive practices. I want to talk about enforcement for a little bit. That's in the amendment. Exclusive enforcement by the Attorney General. Violations are enforced under the Consumer Protection Act, and there is no private right of action, and so it prevents excessive litigation. And the final thing that I think is important to note here in the amendment is that it does not apply to medications administered directly by licensed providers, long-term care facilities, home care and adult daycare providers, PACE programs, and veterinary or animal compounding. And with that, I ask for an aye vote.
Further, Senator Carson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 66 and this amendment are about consumer safety and accuracy in marketing and advertising. Now, we've made a lot of changes here with this amendment to address concerns from our colleagues and from various interest groups and consumers. And as I mentioned earlier, I do believe sincerely that this is not, at this point, a piece of legislation that is going to affect individuals' rights to get particular compound drugs with their physician or their health advisor or their pharmacist. The bill uses the same approach we use in other bills to prohibit deceptive trade practices within the Colorado Consumer Protection Act, with enforcement exclusive to the Attorney General. Now, to make my point, earlier this week I went to the grocery store looking for peaches. And now I'll get to the point here, because this is important. I didn't find very good peaches. I didn't find any Colorado peaches. I found some peaches from Chile. So I got to thinking, well, what would we do if this store started marketing these peaches from Chile as peaches from Colorado? Well, I'll tell you what we'd do. We would pass a bill in this chamber prohibiting the deceptive advertising of those peaches, which is exactly what we did a month ago, unanimously, I might add. Unanimously, every member of this chamber voted for that bill. In fact, 20 members of this chamber co-sponsored that bill. And what does that bill say? A person shall not identify an agricultural product as being grown in the state when selling, marketing, advertising, or distributing the product in the state unless the product is in fact grown in the state of Colorado. And a person shall not use the Colorado Proud designation or logo established by the department or a trademark of the designation or logo unless its use is authorized by the department. And if you violate that, what is the penalty? Well, that is a violation, as it constitutes a deceptive trade act under the Colorado Consumer Protection Act, enforced exclusively by the Attorney General and not subject to a private right of action. So what do we do in this bill? Well, you're going to recognize some pretty similar language here. We say that it is a deceptive trade practice to make false or misleading claims about compounded weight loss drugs. It's a deceptive act to advertise products as FDA approved when they are not. It doesn't say you can't have unapproved products. It says you just can't say they're FDA approved when they're not. You cannot make unverified claims about safety, effectiveness, or outcomes. And finally, you cannot distribute products without the proper legal authorization for those ingredients. So essentially, anyone in this arena who is complying with current law is not going to be affected by this bill. A couple other points I want to make that the senator from Aurora made, I think, very clearly. There was some information put out earlier that this bill created a private right of action. Well, I want to make it very clear that this amendment, and I know sometimes it's hard to read these amendments, but this amendment retains the language that we have in the bill, the very explicit language, 2 clauses, which state that the Attorney General has exclusive authority to enforce this section, and number 2, that there is no private right of action, there is no basis for a private right of action created under this legislation. So, you know, and when I heard these rumors going around, I checked with some other legal folks, and they agree with me that there is no private right of action in this bill. And as I said, it follows the same procedure we use in a number of these consumer protection bills, where we simply say that if you're deceiving the public, you know, there should be a penalty for that. You're misleading the public. So, in conclusion, I just want to say, you know, I think we all recognize, you know, that the Palisade peaches are the best peaches in the world. But I think if you bite into a peach from Georgia or California or Chile, you might have an unpleasant experience, but it's probably not going to injure you or kill you. But I will say that a deceptively marketed weight loss medication of questionable origins just might have a much more serious consequence for you or someone you know. So with that, I would urge my colleagues to support this legislation. Thank you.
And this amendment in particular. Any further discussion on L16? There is discussion on L16. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the good senator from Highlands Ranch. I think the question that I would invite you to respond to is, when you go to the grocery store looking for a peach, regardless of whether or not it is deceptively labeled as a Palisade peach or not, I think we all can agree that a peach is a peach. I think my question here that I would invite a response from you about is when it comes to requiring the Attorney General to have sole enforcement authority related to the Colorado Consumer Protection Act, how many people need to experience harm prior to that Attorney General being able to successfully raise a claim against a bad actor?
Well, thank you to my colleague from Denver.
Senator Carson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for those comments from my colleague from Denver. And I do think they make the point. The point I was attempting to make is simply drugs are probably a little more serious than peaches. And the issue here, I think, is if we have to recognize that there is a danger to these products if they're not properly sourced, if they're not properly inspected. We're not interfering in individual transactions, but we're saying if entities or individuals are out there marketing products deceptively to people, they're misleading people, particularly about the origin. I mean, we know a lot of these drugs are now coming from foreign countries, from China. They're not inspected. They're not potentially safe for consumers. So in terms of a number of consumers who might be harmed, obviously I don't have a specific number, but I think if the issue was arising, that would certainly be a proper role for the Attorney General to look into that, and he has the authority, his staff will have the authority to do that, and as they do under many provisions in the Colorado Consumer Protection Act. So I'm very comfortable that the issue the senator from Denver raises will be very well addressed by this legislation.
Senator Dora.
what I hear in that response is that it is likely greater than 1. That not only are we not talking about something as innocuous as peaches, and I'll let the example slide. I'll let the example go now after this, but I will just say that another example of the Consumer Protection Act that I have direct experience with, since we're speaking in analogies, is the challenges related to the towing industry. Years ago, I ran a bipartisan bill with Senator Sonnenberg to create a towing bill of rights. And then a year later, I got towed. Not only did I get towed, but hundreds of other Coloradans had experienced the same bad practices by one particular company that is no longer in business. It wasn't that one person experienced harm. It wasn't that a state senator experienced harm. It required hundreds of people prior to the Attorney General having sufficient evidence to demonstrate that there had, in fact, been deceptive practices engaged in by this company. Now, so I can appreciate the peaches example because I have the towing example. My, I think, concern as I am listening to your explanation around this, that I think concerns me is as it relates to a drug. Given so many of the privacy concerns, given so many of the fear and stigma and shame and what have you that often involves this type of medication, how many people would have to be harmed prior to an attorney general feeling sufficiently informed to be able to levy a claim under the Consumer Protection Act? That, I think, is my challenge as I'm listening to you explain this.
Further discussion on L16. Senator Carson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I think the point that the senator from Denver is getting at is certainly an important one. Safety, overall safety issues of pharmaceutical products. I don't dispute that, but I think the intent of this legislation is somewhat different. It's simply to say if products are being deceptively marketed out there, you know, we've explored during the last few months, the senator from Aurora and I, different approaches to this bill. And I think where we've landed is what we want to get in this particular piece of legislation is companies or groups of individuals or whoever it may be out there misleading the public, saying that something is FDA approved or saying to people that this is some wonder drug that's going to turn your life around and you can eat as much as you want and so on and so forth, and you're just going to be slim and healthy. And if that can't be backed up, if there's no evidence for something or a claim like that, I don't think it's fair to the public to not have some type of enforcement mechanism by the Attorney General to be able to come in and say, this is a concern for the public. So that's where we've landed on this piece of legislation at this point. I respect the comments from the senator from Denver, and I think there are other areas which address her concerns out there in the legal world, certainly.
Further discussion on L16. Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of L16 as Senate Bill 66. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused. L16 is adopted. To the bill, further discussion. Senator Carson.
Yes, and just back to my analogy, I'll conclude my comments with this. I did bring some of these peaches with me today, and I didn't bring them up here because it might violate a rule of using a prop, but I'm not going to eat these peaches because they're not very good, but they're on my desk, so if anyone wants them, you can have them. Thank you.
Those are very important points to Senate Bill 66. Senator Judah.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to reinforce that the Attorney General has very much and feels very confident that the way this bill is written has teeth for them to enforce. And I think the way this bill is now written is that we are going after bad actors. If a compounding pharmacy, especially gray and black markets, are doing something nefarious, then yes, they should worry about this bill. That said, a majority of compounding pharmacies are not, and we appreciate that. One of the biggest offenders was a national online company. The FDA put the kibosh on it, and now they are in compliance. That's it. It's as simple as that. We are by no means trying to do away with compounding pharmacies. They are important. They are important when there is a gap in the market and a shortage. And so at the end of the day, this bill is simply a Consumer Protection Act. That's it. That's all this bill does. It went from double digits of pages to a one-pager. And I hope people realize that at the end of the day, we are wanting to protect people who are in need of GLP-1 drugs. And GLP-1 drugs are not just used for weight loss. They are used for other things, and we want people to use them safely. We don't want arsenic as an ingredient in people's GLP-1s, which is what has happened. And I think as lawmakers, we have an obligation to protect people who need these drugs and should use them safely. That's all this bill does. It cracks down on bad actors and deceptive marketing. Please don't say that this is fine, this is FDA approved, and that you will have a satisfactory outcome in this drug and that it's completely safe. They need to make sure they're telling their customers that this is not FDA approved and their ingredients are not FDA approved. It promotes safe sourcing and transparency. If I'm taking a drug, I want to know that the ingredients in that drug are safe. And it preserves access for responsible providers and patients. It is a consumer protection bill. We shouldn't look into it any more than that. Does not impact pharmacies are already in compliance with the law. I want to be very clear about that. We want to honor the work that compounding pharmacies are doing. We do not want to do away with them, but we do want to protect the people who are using these drugs. I ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion on Senate Bill 66. Senator Frizzell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a couple of comments. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking on this. I still have concerns about this particular legislation, simply because I kind of started at the beginning when we heard this in Health and Human Services, and there has been quite an evolution to this piece of legislation, which I'm really happy about. It needed a lot of evolution, in my opinion. I'm really grateful to the bill sponsors for making the amendments that they have, for the most part. Really happy to see the undefined, whatever it is, 20 units go away. That was a very significant step forward, in my opinion. One of the things that's important to understand is this bill has no fiscal note because of some amendments that had happened really early on that took enforcement, as I recall, because it's slept a few times since we heard this bill in Health and Human Services, but as I recall, the enforcement was initially with the Board of Pharmacy, and that triggered a fiscal note for enforcement and went instead, and that's why we have the language around deceptive trade practices that we have today, because the AG's office is much kinder, I guess, when it comes to providing fiscal notes. I'm still a little baffled about that. I agree, though, with the good senator from Denver. Her perspective is very valuable, because the question was, what does it take to trigger action by the Attorney General's office? How many people have to complain? Do people actually know that they should complain to the Attorney General's office if they have an adverse experience with one of these weight loss drugs, which I'm actually trying to find a moment of humor when we were discussing a previous bill where it was described that 35% of prescribed drugs are opiates, and I quipped that the other 65 are GLP-1s. I thought it was funny. It's okay, you don't have to laugh. Because these drugs are both prescribed, but they are also increasingly available without supervision, without interaction with a bona fide pharmacist. You can get them through the mail, you can get them online, you can get them, I don't know, maybe like Botox from your hairdresser, I don't know. It's kind of crazy, and we have reached a point with medication and other other products where it's kind of Wild Westish, because there's nobody really overseeing this. So I do understand the need to punish bad actors, and I think that that's really important, especially when we're talking about prescription, what should be prescription medication, but is all too frequently accessed without a prescription, and that's the problem. I agree with the premise of this bill. We should go after the bad actors because they are doing illegal things. I just don't necessarily believe that this is the construct on which to do that. I have concerns about how do we define what is false, what is misleading, what is unsubstantiated, and what is unverified as described in this bill. I understand that we have similar language in other places in statute, but when it comes to marketing, it gets pretty fuzzy really fast. So I am going to remain a no vote on this bill. Thank you for listening to my rambling opinion this morning.
Further discussion? There is discussion. Senator Carson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to the senator from Castle Rock for those comments, and she has been very helpful to us in some of the development of this bill, so I appreciate that. I just want to echo what my colleague from Aurora said. You know, this is really about consumer safety and what's being marketed out there to people deceptively. And the reason we ended up where we're at is we wanted to make it absolutely clear the intent of this bill has never been to interfere with legitimate compounding activities that are going on out there with consumers. I know we've gotten a lot of emails about that, and this bill does not impact that at this point. So I would urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the passage of Senate Bill 66. Are there any no votes? Senators Frizzell, Zamora Wilson, Kirkmeyer, Rich, Amabile, Marchman, Colker, Weissman, Ball, Sullivan, Pelton B, Mullica, Bright, Pelton R, Catlin. With a vote of 20 ayes, 15 noes, 0 absent or excused, Senate Bill 66 is passed. Co-sponsors. Mr. Schaffler, please read the title of House Bill 1084.
House Bill 1084 by Representatives Espinosa and Camacho and Senators Weissman and Lindstedt concerning voter transparency requirements to expand information about the funding of initiated statewide ballot measures and in connection therewith requiring the abstract of the fiscal impact statement for certain initiated statewide ballot measures to describe the measure's likely effect on main areas of state expenditure.
Very well done. Senator Weissman.
Sorry about that, Mr. Schaffler. We move for the adoption of House Bill 1084 on third reading and final passage. NRGS vote.
Further discussion, seeing none. The motion is the passage of House Bill 1084. Are there any no votes? Senators, Mr. Minority Leader, Kirkmeyer, Frizzell, Zamora Wilson, Rich, Baisley, Liston, Pelton R, Catlin, Carson, Bright, Pelton B, with a vote of 23 ayes, 12 noes, 0 absent or excused, House Bill 1084 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Wallace, Kipp, Roberts, Sullivan, Gonzalez, Snyder, Exum, Benavidez, Henriksen. Please add the president. Mr. Schaffler, please read the title of House Bill 1202.
House Bill 1202 by Representatives Rutinel and Sirota and Senators Amabile and Marchman concerning strategies to mitigate homelessness and in connection therewith requiring the Department of Local Affairs to present a proposal for a statewide strategy on homelessness prevention and resolution, allowing local governments to create multi-jurisdictional homelessness authorities and allowing real estate documentary fees to be used for affordable housing.
Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move House Bill 1202 on third reading and final passage.
Further discussion. Seeing that the motion is the passage of House Bill 1202. Are there any aye votes? Are there any no votes? Senators, very good. You're getting good at this. Mr. Minority Leader, Rich, Zamora Wilson, Frizzell, Kirkmeyer, Pelton B, Bright, Carson, Pelton R, Catlin, Liston, Baisley, with a vote of 23 ayes, 12 noes, 0 absent or excused, House Bill 1202 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Kipp, Wallace, Gonzalez, please add the president, and Senator Benavidez, and Cutter. Mr. Schaffler, please read the title of Senate Bill 002.
Senate Bill 002 by Senators Kipp and Exum and Representative Wilford concerning emergency affordability and in connection therewith establishing a percentage of income payment plan program for income qualified utility customers.
Senator Kipp.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move SB 26002 on third reading and final passage.
Further discussion. There is discussion. Senator Exum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to thank all the stakeholders, the bill drafter, the lobby corps, and everyone else that really had an impact on working on this bill to get it to a good place and ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
That's very kind of you, Senator Exum. Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the passage of Senate Bill 002. Are there any no votes? Even after all that?
Yeah.
A lot of work done on this bill. All right, Mr. Minority Leader, Senators Frizzell, Kirkmeyer, Zamora Wilson, Rich, Pelton B, Baisley, Bright, Liston, Carson, Pelton R, Catlin, with a vote of 23 ayes, 12 noes, 0 absent or excused. Senate Bill 002 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Wallace, Marchman, Cutter, Gonzalez, Amabile, Weissman, Lindstedt, Benavidez, Snyder, Ball, Roberts, Colker. Please add the president. General orders, second reading of the bills. Are we? Okay. Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of general orders, second reading of bills.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Man, the ayes have it somehow. How are you going to vote both ways? And the motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself in Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of the bills, and Senator Marchman will take the chair. I do that. I set a bad example.
The committee will come to order and the court rule is relaxed. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that House Bill 1071 lay over until Monday, 4/20.
The motion is to lay over House Bill 1071 until Monday, 4/20. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. That bill will lay over until 4/20. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Senate Bill 134 lay over until Monday, April 20th.
The motion for the body is to lay over 134 until Monday, April 20th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that bill will lay over until Monday, April 20th. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that Senate Bill 150 be moved to the bottom of the calendar.
The motion for the body is to move Senate Bill 150 to the bottom of the calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The aye has it. We'll move that bill to the end of the calendar. Mr. Schaffel, will you please read the title of Senate Bill 101?
Senate Bill 101 by Senator Pelton B. concerning measures to assist local governments in complying with landfill methane emission reduction regulations adopted by the Air Quality Control Commission.
Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 101 and the Transportation Committee report.
To the T&E Committee report.
Thank you.
Pelton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, members, we offered a strike below that just defines what available grants that local governments can go for in that strike below. So that's what we did in the Transportation and Energy Committee.
The motion is the adoption of the Transportation and Energy Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The T&E report is adopted. To the bill. Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So basically what happened this summer was the AQCC came out with rule number 31, which was saying that landfills have to capture their methane. So basically without any funds to do so for these local governments and other landfills, public landfills and private landfills. So the county commissioners in my communities came out and asked me to find a way to help these counties be in compliance, because they're talking anywhere between $3.5 million and $6.1 million to put up these methane capture equipment. And then it's also another anywhere between $200,000 and $400,000 a year to maintain and to do other stuff with that equipment. So basically what they were asking is, please do something about this unfunded mandate so we don't have to increase fees on our community, so the cost of living becomes higher in our smaller communities. But so I do have an amendment, and I know that my colleague has an amendment, so I'm going to offer my amendment now.
Very good. There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read L005?
Amendment L005.
Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L005, the Senate Bill 101.
To the amendment, Senator Pelton.
So this amendment was brought to us by CDPHE, and it just strikes where it talks about disproportionately impacted communities, where it strikes most recent 5-year United States Bureau of Census American Community Survey data, and then adds 5-year United States Bureau of Census American Community Surveys released no later than 3 years prior to the meets one or more of the following criteria. So we're just changing that language in that section of the bill, and that's what we're doing. So I ask for an aye vote.
The motion is the adoption of Amendment L005. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L005 is adopted. There is an amendment at the desk. Mr. Schaffler, will you please read Amendment L006?
Amendment L006.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L006.
Great. To the amendment.
Thank you. This amendment just makes it clear within the bill that the availability of the grant funds are to be for disproportionately impacted communities specifically. I ask for an aye vote.
The motion is the adoption of L006. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L006 is adopted. To the bill. Senator Pelton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Essentially what this bill ends up being is it's talking about compliance. So we want to make sure that our counties are able to comply with this regulation without raising the costs of their local communities where they can't afford it. There's been several studies or several surveys done out there that the number one concern for Colorado, the people of Colorado, is that the cost of living is getting to be harder and harder to live here and getting more non-cost effective to stay here in Colorado. People are leaving our state. So what this does is says, you can go after these competitive grants. You're allowed to do that, and we want to make sure that the cost of living isn't going up so high by complying with this that it impacts our disproportionately impacted communities like the 6 counties that I represent in northeastern Colorado. So I ask for an aye vote on Senate Bill 101.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the good senator from Sterling for his leadership on this. I'm glad to be on this bill with him, or hope to be added between second and third reading, because I also represent some of the counties that are dealing with the financial impacts of this new rule of limiting methane emissions into our atmosphere, which is something I support. Methane is incredibly toxic. It can have very adverse impacts on communities. We should be doing what we can to limit methane emissions, but we can't do it at the cost of significantly raising fees on everyday Coloradans to dispose of their trash. And that is what several of the counties, including Summit County that I represent, have come forward and saying is we want to comply, we want clean air, but we need some financial assistance to get us there, or else we're going to have to massively raise fees on our residents. So this is a win-win. This allows them to apply for state grant money for compliance, and then helps communities deal with the toxicity of methane. So thank you to the good senator for his collaboration on this. This has been a big stakeholder conversation, as you can imagine. The environmental advocates, the other community groups who worked very closely with us, I think everybody's either in a supportive or neutral position at this point, and this is a great win-win. I ask for your aye vote.
Very good. Senator Cutter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank the sponsors for all the hard work they did. I know that this was kind of a contentious bill to begin with, because while they were trying to create this balance between actually taking care of the counties and being supportive and not rolling back some really important rules on methane. And so I just want to say thank you to them for working so hard to get this in a good place, and for all the folks outside this room that helped get that to a good place as well. And I will be supporting it today and urge an aye vote.
Great. The motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 159. Oh, God, sorry about that. Senate Bill 101. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And the ayes have it. Senate Bill 101 is adopted. Mr. Schaffler, will you please read the title now of Senate Bill 159?
Senate Bill 159 by Senators Weissman and Gonzalez and Representatives Mabry and Martinez concerning measures for managing the capacity of the Department of Corrections.
Senator Wiseman.
Thanks, Madam Chair. We move 159 and the committee report from Judiciary.
To the Judiciary Committee report.
Members, we adopted actually a pretty substantial amendment in Judiciary. It has the effect of really simplifying the bill and relative to the introduced, kind of ratcheting back the expansions to some of the earned time changes. There was just, it's a funky statute to draft in. There were some miscommunications that led to the introduced, so asking for your support of the committee report.
The motion is the adoption of the Judiciary Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Judiciary Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Wiseman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, our drafter in reviewing the bill between committee and the floor just caught some technical things to clean up in connection with which I have an amendment.
There is an amendment at the desk. Mr. Schaaf, will you please read Amendment L008?
Amendment L008.
Senator Wiseman.
Thanks, Madam Chair. We move L8 to 159.
To the amendment.
Thank you. Members, as noted, technical change caught by the Office of Legal Services. Ask for a yes vote.
The motion is the adoption of L008. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L008 is adopted. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We bring forward for your consideration Senate Bill 159 after years and years and years of trying to work on this issue. Let me just begin by saying that although we have been working for years to try and ensure that the Department of Corrections effectively and intentionally manage its prison population, and although we have brought legislation to try and raise the alarms, there has even been an audit conducted. There has been numerous questions by colleagues on the Joint Budget Committee, and only now, following the triggering of the bipartisan passed prison population management policy that passed this building with unanimous support back in 2018. Only now, this fall, has the prison population management measures been triggered. And then, just weeks ago, our dear governor informed us that the capacity crisis was so dire that we might need to purchase a prison or two. Colleagues, something's wrong with that equation. That math ain't mathin'. And so it is in that spirit that we bring forward for your consideration Senate Bill 159 in order to ensure that we are being thoughtful, intentional about how we are calculating earn time, about how we go and actually create a working group in order to more intentionally grapple with these challenges. Ask for your aye vote on Senate Bill 159.
Senator Wiseman.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So, members, just to say a little bit about the bill, and then looks like we're going to have some discussion here. There are two major elements to 159 in its amended form. One is some pretty incremental modifications to our earned time statutes. Two is to set up a work group based on the reality we didn't get into this pickle in a day, and we're not going to get out of it in a day. So sub 10, which starts at page 7 of the introduced, if you're looking at that, is where the work group starts. If you've been around, you've seen provisions like this. We try to have a diversity of opinions and perspectives and backgrounds represented. In the work group, we have a diversity of appointing authorities, and the charge or directions, if you will, or directives to the work group is on page 8 of the introduced. In the interest of time, I'm not going to read all the way through it, but the Department of Corrections and all of the factors that lead people to be there and that lead people to stay there for more or less time amounts to a complex system. Again, a lot of us have spent many, 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 many hours this year but we do not pretend we've solved everything. We need to get the right people in a room to keep talking about it. So the hope is the group will get going pretty quickly. We give it a timeline of June 30 of 2028. So 2 full legislative sessions for us to engage with the work product of that group, and we can, see what's coming back. There is an interim report due this December. We can possibly react to its work product. We are specifically, through the Judiciary Committees, empowered to sort of give some requests or notices to the group. Again, if you look at that, that's sort of going forward. In the nearer term, we are making some incremental changes to earn time. Earn time is just that. If you will look on page 2 to the top of 3 in the introduced, there's a list of 8 factors, all of which have to be complied with before earn time is actually earned and certified in the mechanism set forth by the relevant case manager, who is assigned to supervise that inmate. So if you don't behave well, if you cut up, you're going to lose it. The emphasis in earned time is on the earned part of it. The way that I would think about what the amended bill does is, right now we sort of have 2 buckets for the accrual of earned time. Lower level offenders can get up to 12 days a month. Others can get 10, again, if they behave properly. What the amended version is going to do is, for the offenders in the 12 bucket, increase that to 14. There are some exceptions who fall back to the lower rate of accrual. In existing law, we preserve that. We actually add another exception for felony motor vehicle theft, because that's been an issue of conversation around here. And then the folks who are earning at, folks who are accepted from the ability to earn 12 now would not earn 14. They would fall back to 12. We preserve all of the exceptions. We preserve sort of what offenses, again, with the felony motor vehicle theft exception or addition. We preserve what's what. We're trying to encompass 2 realities. This was very well put by an appointee to the parole board that we were hearing and confirming in Judiciary a couple weeks ago. The correctional system has to encompass 2 realities at once. One is that people do some bad things sometimes, and they need to be punished for that, and that's why they're in DOC in the first place. The other is that people are capable of change, and we want to incent change. That is fundamentally what earned time is. Any correctional administrator will tell you they need an incentive for good behavior inside. So with reference to the lower level offenses that have been, again, classified, bucketed the way they have been for a long time, we're making an incremental change in the rate of earned time accrual there. So there's an even more powerful incentive for folks to behave well, to do what the department is supposed to be doing, which is correcting. We call it the Department of Corrections for that reason. If people behave, they will become parole eligible a little bit more quickly. Emphasis on eligible. You still have to convince the parole board that you're worthy of release and beginning your period of parole supervision. In connection with everything else the senator from Denver alluded to, the now well over $1 billion cost of maintaining DOC, the budget pressures we know that we have, this is intended to be a small contribution to the other half of the equation, which is, can we have people do time that they need to serve? Can we create an incentive for them to behave well, earn their parole out, so we have very, very expensive limited capacity to be used for incarcerating other folks who have done things that need some punishment. So we'll step back. Looks like there's going to be some discussion. We ask for a yes vote.
Senator Carson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, thank you to my colleague from Aurora, the chair of our Judiciary Committee, and Senator from Denver for those comments. I guess I'd start by saying I don't disagree with the notion that we want to have incentives in place for inmates to improve their behavior. I just think we probably have those mechanisms in place now, and I'm not compelled that we need to keep. I'm not compelled to believe that we need to keep changing those and expanding on them. You know, I think there's an interesting thing going on with the legislature right now. There seem to be continual legislation, continual philosophy that we should move toward more early release, early release, early release. And you're seeing that in a lot of, quite frankly, a lot of the bills coming through this year and in recent years. And I think it's one of the main areas where the legislature, the philosophy of the legislature differs from the philosophy of the public at large. You know, it's interesting when we have these Judiciary Committee hearings, oftentimes you'll hear the comment, well, the purpose of prison is to rehabilitate people. Well, that's certainly one of the issues you want to deal with in prison. But I happen to believe, and I think an awful lot of folks in Colorado believe, that the purpose of prison is also punishment for the crimes that have been committed against the victims and their families. Certainly punishment is an important element of our correction system. And secondly, in many cases, public safety is another one. I mean, you know, let's be frank here. We're often dealing with violent individuals. That's why they're in prison. They may have murdered folks. They may have created other violent crimes. And there's even a bill moving through the House right now around the issue of extreme indifference, where people, you know, they might just be driving down the road intoxicated in their car and decide to shoot into somebody's house, and somebody gets killed, and for some reason there's a viewpoint that we ought to be a little more lenient in that area, which I find very difficult to understand.
Senator Carson, will you please stay germane to Senate Bill 159? I understand what you're saying, but if you could just stay germane to this bill, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been admonished 2 days in a row, so I'll behave myself today. I will stick to 159 and simply say that I do have an amendment. And I think what this amendment reflects, and I'll offer it here in a second, is the viewpoint that the legislature is moving philosophically in a very different direction than the public. And I'll talk about that at this juncture. I'm going to place an amendment at the desk.
There is an amendment at the desk. Mr. Schaff, will you please read Amendment L003?
Amendment L003, amend the Judiciary Committee report dated
Senator
April.
Carson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L003.
To the amendment, Senator Carson.
So what this amendment does is it says that, you know, anything we do with earned time, an extra credit, if you will, cannot interfere with an inmate, who's committed violent crimes, completing at least 85% of their sentence. Now, why do we pick that 85% number? Well, that's where the public is. They passed a ballot issue a couple of years ago, and they made it very clear. It was an overwhelming vote that individuals who commit violent crimes in this state should serve at least 85% of their sentence. And so that still obviously leaves some room for earned time and potentially earlier release than is contemplated initially by the judicial system. But I think this amendment really gets at the point I'm making here, is that the legislature keeps moving in this direction of we need to have more early release. We need to have quicker parole. We need to have more opportunities to get out. And as I said, we certainly want to encourage good behavior, but I think public safety and punishment are also very important notions in our criminal justice system. It's not just about rehabilitation. It's about other things that the public values and holds important, and particularly the public safety element. That is a foundational role of government, is to keep the public safe, to enforce the laws, to make sure that we can live in safe communities. And so I think this is an important amendment. It's obviously a philosophical amendment, but I think it sends an important message that the voters of this state have said, we're not interested in these continual bills to promote more early release. We would like to see violent offenders serving their sentences. Thank you.
Senator Weissman?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm going to try to bring the discussion back to the actual text of the bill and the amendment. We had some references to very serious upper-level felonies, which have never been in the bill to start with. I'm going to ask for a no vote on L3 because, as written, it appears to essentially gut not just the bill, but the entire existing earned time statutory mechanism, which, again, among other things, is a mechanism to create an incentive and ensure safety inside. Any correctional administrator will tell you, and several over the years have told me, that you need to have this incentive for good behavior. The voters did pass Prop 128, which provided that certain upper-level offenses did not become parole eligible until 85% of time served. That measure called out specific offenses not in a charge level way, for example, by reference to felony 5 or 6, but rather specific offenses. That was a choice made by the proponents of the measure and affirmed by the voters. At any rate, there's little intersection between what was listed in 85 and what's listed in the earned time statute in ways that are supposed to accrue at faster rates. Felony 4, 5, or 6, or DF 3 or 4, you typically serve only a few years for those. We're not saying you shouldn't serve time. You've been adjudicated to serve time. You were sent there by a judge, or you pled to it. The way that L3 is written, you're essentially breaking the entire earned time statute, as I understand this amendment, which is not the policy that we should have in Colorado, so I need to ask for a no vote.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in opposition to this amendment because it is amendments like these, it is policy like this that drives the need for new private prisons to be built in the state. I ask for a no vote.
Senator Frizzell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of Amendment L3. This is very simply respecting the wishes of the voters. Proposition 128 passed overwhelmingly. It wasn't even close. Over 62% of Coloradans said, we think it's a really important thing to keep violent offenders in jail for 85% of their sentence, because that wasn't happening. I think that 62% of Coloradans said, we dislike what has become the revolving door of our justice system. "62% of Coloradans said, we want people to be held accountable for the violent crimes that they commit." This is a really important amendment, just as that initiative was really important to a lot of people in our state. So I rise in support of this amendment. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body. Senatorial, a division has been called. A division has been requested. All those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please be seated. The motion is the adoption of L003. All those opposed? No. All those in favor, please stand and remain standing without moving around the chamber until the count is complete. Please be seated. All those opposed, please stand and remain standing without moving around the chamber until the count is complete. The chair is not in doubt. L003 fails. To the bill. Is there any further? Senator Frizzell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just spoke about how I felt that it was important to respect the wishes of the voters of the state of Colorado. And with that, I have an amendment.
There is an amendment at the desk. Mr. Schaffler, will you please read L006?
Amendment L006, amendment
Senator Frizzell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L006 to Senate Bill 159.
To the amendment.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. This is a pretty straightforward amendment. It strikes lines 13 through 23 on page 7. This is a really important amendment that repeals the provision set forth in this bill that allows inmates who demonstrate quote-unquote exceptional conduct that promotes safety of correctional staff, volunteers, contractors, or others, and each instance may be awarded as many as 60 days of earned time. I feel that this is a pretty subjective benchmark, and this provision is just pretty broad. What does this mean? What does exceptional conduct look like? Who determines that? And it really risks creating significant sentence reductions based on subjective or inconsistency. It effectively allows earned time to be awarded at a high rate for conduct that may already be expected as part of basic institutional compliance and safety requirements. I don't know about you all who are parents, but sometimes, I don't know, I think that sometimes we lower expectations of individuals, whether they're your kid or somebody who's incarcerated or just somebody else walking down the street. If you are incarcerated, I believe that there should be an expectation that you are doing the right thing, that you are behaving, and if you are not, perhaps that lengthens your sentence. And in fact, if you are attacking other prisoners, if you are creating issues in that environment, that's typically what happens. So I ask for your aye vote on this amendment.
Senator Weissman.
Thanks, Madam Chair. The answer to the question, who determines whether this earned time is to be granted, is to be found in the bill and in existing law. Sub 1 of the section we're talking about here, the answer is the case manager, the corrections professional who is in charge of earned time in every other respects. I do appreciate the senator from Castle Rock reading the text because I think it fully explains why I'm asking for a no vote on this. An offender who demonstrates exceptional conduct that promotes the safety of correctional staff, volunteers, contractors, or other persons. We want safety inside the correctional environment. Frankly, the strains that I think we all know about that we've had on the employee corps of DOC over years, going back to COVID for a mix of reasons, have, among other things, created a bit of a safety risk inside for everybody, including state employees, DOC staff. We want to promote that environment of safety. We do want those incarcerated thinking about that. Hey, did I hear something? Is somebody planning something that they shouldn't be doing? We want to incent people to come forward with that information. Frankly, there may be some risk to themselves if they do that. That's why the incentive. I don't think that we should militate against public safety inside by voting for this amendment, so I ask for a no.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L006? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of L006. All those in favor say aye. And opposed, no. No! The noes have it, and L006 fails. Senator Rich, to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it's been an interesting conversation so far. I guess one of the things that I get concerned about is that we'll have something go to the voters, and it passes overwhelmingly, and then this body comes back and says, oh, well, maybe that's not what they meant, and we're going to make some changes, and you just kind of don't care what the voters think. But regardless of that, I have something else. I have an amendment.
There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment 7?
Amendment L7, amend Judiciary Committee
Senator
report.
Rich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L007 to Senate Bill 26-159.
To the amendments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This amendment strikes the working group and its responsibilities and duties from the bill. And the reason for that is because a working group to make recommendations for a capacity management plan for the DOC with input from the impacted groups. This amendment repeals the working group provision as the Department of Corrections already has the data and subject matter experts necessary to analyze the needs of the department. Rather than creating an additional working group, the focus should be on improving the effectiveness of the existing working group and strengthening the use of current internal expertise and resources. A working group would add another layer of unnecessary bureaucratic expansion, raising concerns about cost effectiveness and effectiveness, particularly where the responsibilities already fall within existing structures. Rather than creating a new body, The focus should be on improving and strengthening existing oversight and ensuring the current Department of Corrections data and subject matter expertise are fully utilized and address these needs efficiently and effectively. I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me first begin by just acknowledging that I deeply resent the insinuation that we are not following the will of the voters by advancing forward this policy. Full stop. Second, let me now tell you why I rise an objection to this amendment. There was no stakeholder work that went into the proposition that now has exacerbated the long-existing challenge for the Department of Corrections to manage its prison population. Here we are. We have to govern. We have to do the work to ensure the safety of our staff, the safety of the inmates themselves, and our budget. We are now spending year after year well over $1 billion on the Department of Corrections. Even though we see headlines like these that state homicides down 28% in 2025, we still are seeing a prison population increase that then begs the question, how are we going to get out of this structural challenge? JBC has been asking questions for years, considered a whole audit. Audit came out, recommendations. DOC is now recommending the purchase of a new prison, thanks to our dear governor. Said a proposal went nowhere. Who's gonna come in and swoop in and figure this out? We have to do that work. So let us do said work with the subject matter experts within and outside of the department to actually figure out in a meaningful way, in a time-limited way, let's pull together this work group and effectively manage the prison population for the state of Colorado so that we don't have to make the impossible decisions of deciding between 4-day or 3-day school weeks. Because if we keep this up, friends, that's where we're headed. Ask for a no vote.
Senator Wiseman.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just on the first point, I think we try to hold ourselves to higher standards in this room than the other one. That does include going to motive. Anybody who wants to speak against the bill, totally you're right. Propose an amendment, totally you're right. Please don't try to characterize what my motives are in running this bill. And I'll try to not do that with anybody else here either. Now to the work group. Here are some of who's at the table. A DA, I don't want to cut them out. The sheriff, I don't want to cut them out. A crime victim or survivor, I don't want to cut them out. We deliberately set it up so that both majority and minority leadership have appointments. It's typically how we do these things. Again, we didn't get here in a year. We didn't even get here in 10 years. We are not going to get out of here in a year, which is why a lot of thought has gone into who sits at this table, who is part of this work group, what they're going to talk about, how they're going to inform our future work. We think that it should exist. We think that we can learn something from these people who are criminal justice system and carceral professionals. It should stay in the bill. We ask for a no vote.
Is there any further discussion on L007? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of L007. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it. L007 is lost. To the bill. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Senate Bill 159. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 159 is adopted. Mr. Schaffler, will you please read the title of Senate Bill 158?
Senate Bill 158 by Senators Weissman and Ball and Representatives Carter and Espinosa concerning early parole procedures for a youthful offender who has successfully completed a specialized program.
Senator Weissman.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Remove SB 158 and the committee report from Judiciary.
To the Judiciary Committee report.
Members, the committee report clarified some language concerning applicability to existing circumstances. It was a good spot by our House sponsors. We ask for a yes vote.
The motion is the adoption of the Judiciary Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Judiciary Committee report is adopted. To the bill. Senator Ball.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sponsors, I rise in support of Senate Bill 158, which corrects for an oversight in the program that we've created, the JYA-CAP program. Under the current procedure, if the board recommends that someone be released after successful completion of the program, the governor then has ultimate authority to say yes or no. But the statute is silent on what happens if the governor just doesn't act. And so there have been 11 individuals who are recommended for release by the board for the last 3 years or so who are in this state of limbo. And so all this bill does is it clarifies that the governor has 60 days. When that 60 days is up, then the decision will revert back to what the board's recommendation was. I encourage an aye vote.
Senator Weissman.
Thank you. As my co-prime sponsor, the senator from Denver, noted, pretty narrow bill. Members, just to give you some history, in the 2010s, there was a U.S. Supreme Court case that invalidated on constitutional grounds juvenile life without parole sentences. This legislature, before I think most of our time here, reacted to that by passing 2 bills in the 2016 session that were bipartisan. One was to provide a mechanism for resentencing those couple of dozen juvenile life-impacted sentences, and the other was to set up the program we're now talking about, JCAP. It was a program never meant to be easy to get into or very broadly available to get into, and it's pretty rigorous in its composition. Years later, we expanded it. You've now heard it called JYA-CAP. It's juveniles and young adults convicted as adults. There are exclusions. For example, the young adult LWOP sentences. Everything about eligibility, about program completion, we're not changing in this bill. As the senator from Denver noted, it's really just about the very back end. Somebody has done what the law has said that they have to do, and then we're just trying to make sure we have a clear procedure and shot clock for answering the question whether folks will ultimately be granted parole or not pursuant to all of that. So it's trying to add a little bit more certainty to the process for everybody involved, and we ask for a yes vote.
Senator Carson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few comments on this bill. You know, under current law, there are parole procedures for offenders who were convicted of a felony offense as an adult when they were under the age of 21, known as juveniles and young adults convicted as adults program. Now, this bill allows the parole board, in addition to the governor, to grant early parole to these offenders if they've successfully completed a specialized program. So basically what this bill does is it creates a whole new avenue outside of what we traditionally do in this state, and I think most states, where this is the decision of the governor. And again, I think this is a bill which is kind of geared toward that movement to more and more early release. I know there's some frustration that the governor hasn't acted on some of these, but that is his prerogative. I think what we should focus on is not giving the parole board now the authority to release people, but let's stick with the governor. So I'm going to offer an amendment here.
There is an amendment at the desk. Mr. Schaffler, will you please read L003?
Amendment L003, amend printed bill, page 5 after line 5.
Senator Carson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move amendment L003.
To the amendment.
So this amendment would make it clear that the governor needs to make a decision within 90 days, one way or the other. Either the inmate is released under the program or not, but it would not bring the parole board into the decision-making, the final decision-making process. Obviously, they're very involved in making recommendations to the governor, but I think, I think we should stick with the system we have. I think historically in states and at the federal level, the executive branch ultimately makes those decisions. And while there may be some delays here that are frustrating folks, I think the solution to that is to say, okay, the governor, you just got to make a decision, and the legislature is saying you make the decision within 90 days. You either grant the parole or you deny the parole, one way or the other, and that's the end of the matter. And so I don't think we want to get into this process of, because this is going to set a precedent. I think this legislation just applies to one particular program here that there have been some frustrations over, but it could well set a precedent where we start simply allowing the parole board to make the decision on releasing people down the road. So let's stick with the governor, but let's put a time limit on it of 90 days. That's what this amendment does.
Senator Wiseman.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm going to respectfully ask for a no vote. Here's a few reasons why. So the amendment focuses on VRA offenses. We often treat those separately from non-VRA offenses in our statutes, and with sound reason. Some of the most serious VRA classified offenses are actually not even eligible for JYA cap in the first instance. We did put it into the JYA cap statutes that if somebody is going into the program, there's a specific notification. Parole hearings are also what's called a critical stage in VRA parlance. So there's already, and there should be, a victim notification there. So the whole program, as it should, has cognizance of which are VRA listed offenses and has from the get-go, again, correctly. So the governor from our Constitution, since statehood, probably the governor in almost every state, has a broad clemency power, and we're not talking about that here. Frankly, we can't because it's a constitutional power. The governor can grant commutation or clemency basically at will. Different governors have had their own different procedures around that. Again, we're not talking about that here. What we're talking about is a statutory program that we set up back in the 2010s, amended, I believe it was in 21. Frankly, part of what I think we're trying to do here is guard the legislative prerogative concerning that statutory program by having timelines and just making sure things work. And the governor has, in the amended approach, represented by 158, as we bring it to you, the governor has a role. The parole board also has a role, and there's a time clock. We're trying to make the mechanism work better, asking for a no vote on L3 for those reasons.
Senator no, okay. Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of L003. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it, and that amendment was lost. To the bill. Senator Liston.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, members, once again, we're having a good, lively discussion, and I think we all agree that the governor, for the most part, should indeed, has the ability to give exceptions for felonies, and especially when it deals with younger people, and certainly upon the advice of the parole board as well. And I know we were talking about, the last amendment and about 90 days, or maybe 90 days is not enough. I do have another amendment that would maybe address this issue to give a little more time. There we go. And with that, Madam Chair, I do have an amendment.
Very good. There's an amendment at the desk. Mr. Schaffler, will you please read L002?
Amendment L002, amend the
Senator
judiciary.
Liston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I move Amendment L002 to Senate Bill 158.
To the amendment.
Very good. Members, this amendment, what it does, it quite frankly extends the time frame for the governor to grant or deny parole from 60 days to 120. Well, I know we were just talking about 90, but, really this is a very, very important decision that the governor, has to make. And even as for youthful offenders, the governor, any governor, has a lot on his plate, especially today. And this is a very important decision that affects not only the inmate, but the victims' families, everybody. There's a lot of cross current. This amendment ensures that the governor and his team have a flexible amount of time to review the cases when granting or denying parole. These cases are very sensitive, as I mentioned, for the victims, the inmates, and their families. This amendment aims to prioritize public safety over speed, upholding that a rush decision increases the risk of releasing individuals who might not be ready for parole or denying parole too hastily. This amendment does not change the eligibility or the outcomes, but it improves the decision-making process. And who's to say, we're just giving the governor added time, an extra 60 days. That doesn't mean, that he or she, the governor, they may make the decision after 62 days or 76 days, but let's give them plenty of time to make this very, very important decision. With that, members, I urge an aye vote on L002.
Senator Wiseman.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I do appreciate the incremental nature of the amendment. Nonetheless, I will ask for a no vote. One thing that the whole JYACAP process is not, and is not meant to be, is fast. We're talking about folks who've served decades. If they have earned their way into the program at all, they may not have. And then we, the Department of Corrections, case managers, program managers, have come to know a lot about these folks by the time that they've done 20, 25 more years and come through it and are even in the posture of being reviewed either by the governor or the parole board. So the information about how they've been doing, what was their underlying offense, if they were even eligible, kind of person that they become instead of who they were when they went in, that's all in evidence already. What we don't need is more time to gather that up together, because we've been accumulating it for years and decades. We think that 60 days is enough of a window with all that information already being largely sewn up for there to be a grant or denial. We think we should leave it at 60, so I'm going to ask for a no vote.
Senator Carson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to support the amendment from the senator from Colorado Springs. I think this is a good compromise. 120 days seems to me to be an appropriate period. This amendment ensures that the governor and his legal team have a flexible amount of time to review cases when granting or denying parole for inmates who've completed a specialized program. I think it also recognizes the decision should stick with the governor. That's his prerogative. I think we should, encourage it, but I don't think 60 days is necessary, the appropriate period of time. I think 120 days makes a lot of sense. So I support the amendment.
The motion is the adoption of L002. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. The noes have it, and L002 is lost. To the bill. Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of Senate Bill 158. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. Well, the ayes have it, and Senate Bill 158 is adopted. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over Senate Bill 150 until Monday, April the 20th.
The motion is the adoption, the motion is to lay over Senate Bill
About to blow up the building.
150 until Monday,
April the 20th.
20th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? The ayes have it. We're going to lay that one over till Monday. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no? The ayes have it. We're going to rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Schaffer, will you please read the report?
April 17, 2026. Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave to report has had under consideration the following attached bills, being the second reading thereof, makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 101 as amended, Senate Bill 159 as amended, Senate Bill 158 as amended, passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1071, Senate Bill 134, Senate Bill 150 laid over until April 20th, 2026, retaining their place on the calendar.
Senator Marchman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? What? Senator Frizzell, Helton R., Rich, Baisley, Zamora Wilson, Liston, Catlin, Carson, with a vote of 27 ayes, 8 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused. Committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 101 is amended. Senate Bill 159 is amended. Senate Bill 158 is amended. Passed second reading, order gross place counter for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1071. Senate Bill 134 and Senate Bill 150 laid over until 4/20/2026, retaining their place on the calendar. Members, before we move forward in our regularly scheduled programming, we have a special guest in the building. To my right, your left, please join me in welcoming back the Honorable Senator Janet Buckner to the chamber. Consideration of resolutions. Mr. Schaffler, please read the title of SJR 21.
Senate Joint Resolution 21 by Senator Judah and Representative Zakai concerning designating the month of April as National Arab American Heritage Month.
Senator Judah.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can
I move SJR 21.
I move SJR 21 and ask that it be read at length.
Mr. Schaffler, please read SJR 21 at length.
Whereas for over a century, Arab Americans have been making valuable contributions to every aspect of American society in medicine, law, business, education, technology, government, military service, and culture. And whereas since migrating to the United States, individuals of Arab descent have shared their rich culture and traditions with neighbors and friends, while also serving as fine examples of model citizens and public servants. And whereas Arab Americans have occupied all areas of industry, such as Lebanese American Philip Hitti, who established the first Department of Semitic Languages at Princeton University, Egyptian American Dr. Farouk Elbaz, who was instrumental in planning the Apollo moon landings, Algerian American Dr. Elias Zerhouni, who was director of the National Institutes of Health in the 2000s, and Iraqi American Dr. Mona Hanna, whose research exposed the Flint water crisis. And whereas Arab migrants brought with them to the United States their resilient family values, strong work ethic, dedication to education and diversity in faith, and creed that have added strength to our great democracy. And whereas Arab Americans have enriched our society by sharing in the entrepreneurial American spirit that makes our nation free and prosperous. And whereas the celebration of Arab American ancestry and cultural heritage educates our fellow Americans and counters misconceptions and harmful stereotyping. And whereas Arab Americans join all Americans in their desire to see a peaceful and diverse society, one in which every individual is treated equally and feels safe. And whereas on April 19, 2021, the White House issued a letter recognizing the month of April as National Arab American Heritage Month, the first recognition of this kind issued on a federal level. And whereas in the United States, the Arab American community is made up of approximately 3.7 million individuals, 42,000 of whom call Colorado home. And whereas over 3,000 households in Denver County alone report Arabic as their spoken language, and whereas Colorado has been home to Arab Americans since the late 19th century, with the first major wave of Arab Americans arriving in the state between 1880 and 1890, and whereas the incredible contributions and heritage of Arab Americans have helped us build a better nation and state. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the 75th General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the House of Representatives concurring herein, 1, that the General Assembly recognizes the contributions that Arab Americans have made to the development of the United States and the state of Colorado. 2, that the General Assembly officially designates the month of April as National Arab American Heritage Month to be observed yearly as a time dedicated to recognizing the valuable contributions of Arab Americans. And 3, that the General Assembly urges Colorado residents and institutions to actively participate in this special observance.
Senator Judah.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, thank you. Please be seated. I am incredibly excited and honored to officially and permanently recognize April as Arab American Heritage Month in Colorado. For generations, Arab Americans have helped shape the fabric of this country and Colorado. They are educators and small business owners, engineers and public servants, artists, healthcare workers, and neighbors, contributing not only to our economy, but to the richness of our shared culture. This recognition is about more than a designation on a calendar. It is about reaffirming that Arab American history is American history. It is about ensuring that the future generations see themselves reflected in the story of who we are as a people. At a time when communities are too often misunderstood or marginalized, this resolution sends a clear message that Colorado sees you, we value, and you belong. I'm incredibly proud of my own family, my brother, who's a retired lieutenant colonel from the United States Air Force, my father, who was chaplain at the United States Air Force, and my husband, who was a combat interpreter with our troops in Iraq. I think they all exemplify what it is to be an American, and that you can truly realize your American dream. Importantly, it also gives us the opportunity to educate, to lift up stories, traditions, and contributions that have too often gone untold, and to replace fear with understanding. Making this permanent ensures that this recognition is not fleeting or symbolic, but enduring, woven in the fabric of how we honor the diversity of our state. Thank you so much.
Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of SJR 21. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, SJR 26021 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senator Judah.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask that the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors. Consideration of House amendments to Senate bills. Mr. Schaffler, please read the title to Senate Bill 105.
Senate Bill 105 by Senator Hendrickson and Representatives Martinez and Morrow concerning county coroners and in connection therewith requiring coroners to disclose their financial interests in regulated businesses.
Senator Hendrickson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with House Amendment to Senate Bill 105.
Please tell us why. Please tell us why we would stoop so low.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 105 comes from some of the challenges that have been widely reported on in the Pueblo County Coroner's Office, starting with this summer when 24 bodies were found inappropriately stashed in a closet of the mortuary that's owned by the former coroner. And one of the other problems that the House identified of ongoing challenges with the office then and then post the former coroner's tenure is this requirement that we now have for Class 1 counties, and that is counties over 150,000 people in Colorado, to have all coroners be certified death investigators upon their election. The problem with that, the challenge with that in Pueblo County and I don't have confirmation of how it might play out in Mesa as well. But the problem is that Pueblo has a actually very small coroner's office, and one of the requirements of obtaining that certification is that you have to work in a coroner's office as a classified employee. The small nature of the Pueblo County Coroner's Office means that it can, and I would argue has been used to preclude potential political opponents from achieving that certification. The next nearest county where you could get that is El Paso County, which has a requirement that you be a county resident to be a classified employee. The next nearest county that you can get that is Douglas. So in order to achieve this certification for a Pueblo County resident who may want to be coroner, you would have to commute 90 minutes every day to Castle Rock, best case scenario, to be able to qualify. And so for that reason, that exemption was raised to the 300,000 person limit, and I renew my motion for us to concur with that amendment.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 105. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, that motion is adopted. Senator Henriksen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 105.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the repassage of Senate Bill 105. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 105 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Senator Wallace again. You're welcome. Mr. Schaffler, please read the title of Senate Bill 121.
Senate Bill 121 by Senators Rodriguez and Simpson and Representatives Martinez and Winter concerning the establishment of a threshold of 56 hours in a work week for when an agricultural employer is required to pay overtime to an agricultural employee.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with the amendments applied in the House.
Please tell us why.
Thank you. In the House, they ran an amendment that increased the penalty for wage theft. If they commit wage theft in three times in 5 years, the penalty will go up by 10%. It also highlights fees for misclassification of workers and its corresponding penalties.
Further discussion? Seeing none. There is further discussion. Senator, Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to put my 2 cents in concurring with the amendment offered in the House that changed the bill when it had to deal with wage theft. Ask for support.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 121. Are there any no votes on concurrence with the amendments? Senators Danielson, Marchman, Wallace, Cutter, Sullivan. With a vote of 30 ayes, 5 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, that motion is adopted. Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 121.
The motion is a repassage of Senate Bill 121. Seeing no further discussion, are there any no votes? Senators Cutter, Danielson, Marchman, Wallace, Gonzalez, Kipp, Judah, Exum, Sullivan, Benavidez, Ball, Snyder, Weissman, Colker. Please add the president. With a vote of 20 ayes, 15 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 121 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Mr. Schaffler, please read the title of Senate Bill 128.
Senate Bill 128 by Senator Snyder and Kirkmeyer, Representatives Lukens and Zakai, concerning a sales and use taxation exemption on certain fees charged by the destination management companies.
Senator Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. President. We move to concur with the amendments from the House.
Please tell us why, Senator Snyder.
Well, it's interesting. The Department of Revenue was a reluctant partner at beginning, but somewhere along the way, they embraced the idea of the destination management companies being classified the way they are currently and will be in the future. So they gave us some language that makes it easier for DOR to track these companies and their revenues, and makes it much easier for them to implement. So it's really a DOR amendment that they put on in the House.
Further discussion. Seeing none, the motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 128. Are there any no votes? 128. There is a no vote, Senator Benavidez. With a vote of 34 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, that motion is adopted. Senator Kirkmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 26-128 and ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the repassage of Senate Bill 128. Are there any no votes? Senators Wallace, Gonzalez, Benavidez, Kipp, Sullivan, Benavidez again, Henriksen, Zamora Wilson. With a vote of 28 ayes, 7 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 128 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Senatorial 5. Majority Leader Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having voted on the prevailing side, I move for the reconsideration of Senate Bill 121.
The motion is reconsideration of Senate Bill 121. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. That motion is adopted and reconsideration is granted. Mr. Schaffler, please read the title of Senate Bill 121. Senatorial 5. Here we go. Mr. Schaffler, please read the title of Senate Bill 121.
Senate Bill 121 by Senators Rodriguez and Simpson and Representatives Martinez and Winter T, concerning the establishment of a threshold of 56 hours in a work week for when an agricultural employer is required to pay overtime to an agricultural employee.
Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 121 for reconsideration and ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion? Seeing, that's not the right motion.
Oh, sorry.
Concurrence, sorry about that. Mr.
No, we already concurred. We already concurred. We just, the repassage. Oh, yeah, you said reconsideration.
Repassage. Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I withdraw the last motion and offer up approval for repassage of Senate Bill 121.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the repassage of Senate Bill 121. Are there any no votes? Senators Bridges, you're welcome. Danielson, Wallace, Gonzalez, Cutter, Judah, Benavidez. Kip. Marchman. Snyder. Ball. Sullivan. Exum. Weissman. I don't see anyone else on screen or in person. Senator Coker. Please add the president with a vote of 19 ayes, 16 noes, 0 absent or excused. Senate Bill 121 is repassed. Co-sponsors.
Could still be a no.
Consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar. Mr. Schauffele, please read the appointments listed on the consent calendar.
Members of the State Plumbing Board, effective July 2nd, 2025, for terms expiring July 1st, 2029. Sarah Harkson of Thornton, Colorado, to serve as the master plumber, reappointed. Matthew Gentrup of Loveland, Colorado, to serve as an employee of a local government agency conducting plumbing inspections, appointed. Tiffany Hansen of Littleton, Colorado, to serve as a journeyman plumber, appointed. For a term expiring July 1st, 2026. Jared Serafine of Colorado Springs, Colorado, to serve as a plumbing contractor engaged in the construction of residential or commercial buildings, occasioned by the resignation of Charles Lee of Grand Junction, Colorado, appointed. Members of the State Electrical Board, effective July 1st, 2025, for terms expiring July 1st, 2028. Russell Strickler of Denver, Colorado, to serve as a public member, appointed. Benjamin Larkin of Castle Rock, Colorado, to serve as an electrical contractor who has a master's license, reappointed. Sharissa Allen of Berthoud, Colorado, to serve as a journeyman electrician who is not an electrical contractor, occasioned by the resignation of Monique Cisneros of Conifer, Colorado, appointed. Michael Kahat of Wheat Ridge, Colorado, to serve as a general contractor, occasioned by the resignation of Yvette Roman of Denver, Colorado, appointed. Members of the Workers' Compensation Cost Containment Board for terms expiring December 13, 2029. Robert Schweitzer of Centennial, Colorado, to serve as an executive with good risk management experience in the insurance industry, reappointed. Thomas Jensen of Gypsum, Colorado, to serve as an employer with good risk management experience with respect to their workers' compensation insurance, reappointed. Susan Mishler of Littleton, Colorado, to serve as a representative of an employer with good risk management experience in the insurance industry, appointed.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the passage of all the appointments on the consideration of government appointments consent calendar, which are Sarah Harkinson of Thornton, Matthew Gentrup of Loveland, Tiffany Hansen of Littleton, and Jared Serafine of Colorado Springs for the State Plumbing Board, Russell Strickler of Denver, Benjamin Larkin of Castle Rock, Sharissa Allen of Berthoud, Michael Kashat of Wheat Ridge for the State Electrical Board.
And next page.
Man, you guys were busy. Robert Switzer of Centennial, Thomas Jensen of Gypsum, Susan Mishler of Littleton for the Workers' Compensation Cost Containment Board.
Any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the confirmation of the appointments on the consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 0 excused, those appointments are confirmed. Introduction of bills.
Senate Bill 170 by Senator Coleman and Representative Bacon concerning creating a task force to study how to expand access to effective public schools for Colorado students.
Education. Signing of bills.
The President has signed Senate Joint Resolution 18.
Announcements. Senator Catlin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've asked the minority leader and the majority leader to have an excused absence on Tuesday and Wednesday, and they've granted that. So I wanted to make that announcement. Thank you.
You got it. Senator Peltonar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you. I have a tribute here for the American Bakers Association. The Colorado General Assembly honors the American Bakers Association, the largest U.S. trade association for the commercial baking industry, representing over 370 member companies since 1897. Bread is recognized as a nutritional staple, contributing nearly 40% of dietary fiber in the American diet and providing essential vitamins and minerals. Enriched grains have helped reduce neural tube defects, by nearly 1/3. The commercial baking industry invested $14.8 billion in U.S.-grown ingredients in 2023 and generated a $6.7 billion economic impact in Colorado, supporting over 12,000 jobs, $600 million in wages, and $663 million in tax revenue. This tribute acknowledges the American Bakers Association commitment to food safety, workforce development, and responsible policy advocacy. The Colorado State Senate, with the House of Representatives concurring therein, welcomes the American Bakers Association to Colorado for its annual convention this coming week in Colorado Springs and celebrates the industry's vital contributions to Colorado communities and the American food security. Signed by Senate President James Coleman and Speaker of the House Julie McCluskey.
Really? Members, a tribute about the Bakers Association and nobody had complaints about that?
It wasn't you doing it.
It wasn't me doing it. That's why. I signed it. I don't know if I signed it or not. I signed it. All right, any other announcements? Mr. Majority Leader, please help.
Colleagues, thank you for all your work this weekend, or all your work this week, and maybe we'll do some work this weekend. You haven't heard me move a motion yet. Be safe driving home. Mr. President, I move that the Senate adjourn until 10 a.m. Monday, April 20th, 2026.
You heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate will adjourn until 10 a.m. on Monday, April 20th, 2026.